Welcome to another episode of Code for Thought. With the UK RSE Conference 2023 starting on the 5th of September, I wanted to take a look behind the scenes and find out what it takes to organise and run an event like this. Meet Sam Mangham and Ed Bennett from the organising committee, who will tell us what to expect from the conference, how they got involved in organising it, and how you and the community can help to run this and future community events. And here now my conversation with Ed and Sam. Hello Ed, hello Sam, thanks very much for your time today. I know how busy you are organising the UK RSE Conference, which is in fact the subject for today. But for the sake of the listeners, could you briefly introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Ed Bennett. I am a senior research software engineer at Swansea University, and I am the programme chair for this year's 7th annual conference on research software engineering in Swansea.
Hi, I'm Sam Mangham. I'm a senior research software engineer at the University of Southampton, and I am the conference and events lead trustee for the Society of Research Software Engineering. So I'm closely involved in organising the conference.
This is the 7th conference of the RSE Society. And last year was in Newcastle, which was immediately after the COVID pandemic. So this is year 2, so things should be a little bit easier, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, every conference comes with its own unique challenges. Last year, we were dealing with the fact that it was our first conference after COVID, and it was really a concern as to whether anyone would want to come at all. This year, the challenge is that I think the biggest challenge, at least, is that we've lost Claire Wyatt. Claire Wyatt has gone to work in Germany, so now we've been trying to scramble to pick up all the different tasks that Claire was managing so well previously, trying to work out how to spread those among more people.
Indeed. Talking about the conference in particular, so what can people expect then? It starts on the 5th of September and runs until the 8th, doesn't it?
There's satellite events on the Monday and the Friday, so that is the 4th and the 8th of September, and the conference proper is the 5th to the 7th. The agenda is similar to previous conferences, quite similar to the one we had in Newcastle. So on the first day, we will have keynote and parallel talks. On the second day, we will have workshops, walkthroughs, and new for this year, we will also have a hackathon on the middle day. And then on the Thursday, we will have another plenary panel session, and then we will have more parallel talks before we finish the conference mid-afternoon on the Thursday.
So talk me through what's happening on Monday and Friday then. So you mentioned satellite events. What are they?
So the satellite events we have on the Monday before the conference, there's the traditional RSE leaders meeting where we have, senior RSEs from various groups, people who have lots of leadership roles within the community and within various universities' RSE groups. But we've also got a larger trusted research environments event. This is kind of being organised, sponsored by Dare UK and Health Data Research UK. It's for RSEs and also people from outside the RSE community who work in trusted research environments. So data platforms that are designed to allow you to perform analysis on sensitive data, like health and medical data, but without needing direct access to it. So actually, we expect the attendance for this to be about 100 people, and there's going to be people attending that who aren't actually going to the RSE conference as well. And then on Friday, after the conference, we've got a training satellite event. So this one is being sponsored by the Software Sustainability Institute. So increasingly, RSE groups have larger training portfolios, large training responsibilities, and there's a swathe of major training going forwards across multiple groups. From that sort of community, we're going to have people meet up and discuss best practice, the gaps in people's provision, how we think we can get the maximum training delivered to the maximum number of people in the best possible way. There's not been a forum so far really for everybody to meet other than things like Carpentry Connect or just separate individual groups for particular training projects. So yeah, those are our satellite events.
I think they're quite important events, and I remember the trusted research environment because that was actually a subject for discussion last year as well in Newcastle. But I mean, you are expecting 100 people, so it's really taking off then, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I think this is largely down to the involvement of Dare UK and HDR UK, basically both groups national institutes that work on this sort of thing. We've been kind of working a bit with them to try and serve their community because there might be too few people to have, their own conference for this, but it's nice and easy to kind of add them to our existing conference. And since there's such a large overlap between the TRE community and the RSE community, many people are parts of both, it's just a good synergy.
The other thing that I find interesting is that in some conferences you have the kind of parallel talks, and then you have hackathons or some kind of practical sessions afterwards, but you're couching that right in the middle. Was that a conscious decision, or did it just happen that way?
That's something we decided for last year's conference, because at previous conferences where there was a lot of feedback that people wanted to attend the workshops but felt that there wasn't as much interest because people were constrained on budget, or were constrained, their institutions were giving them pressure to come back, so they needed to run away more quickly. So sandwiching in the middle means that there's a better opportunity for people to really stay around and engage with all of that stuff on the middle day. And we found that worked really well last year for us, so we thought it would be perfectly reasonable to do the same thing again there.
One thing that I wanted to move to next is hybrid events and hybrid event organizing. Because unlike the collaborations workshop, which was organized by the Software Sustainability Institute this year in 2023, which was actually advertised as a hybrid event, this is not a hybrid event then, is it?
Organizing a hybrid event is a massive undertaking. And everyone we spoke to who has experience of organizing hybrid events, fully hybrid events, suggested that it would be mad for us to try and do it for this size of conference with the kind of audience we're expecting. That said, there was a lot of feedback last year that some people aren't able to join us in person and would like to be able to get some aspects of the conference. So we are offering remote participation, not fully hybrid. So the remote experience won't have, for example, all the social events that come with attending in person, but it does give you access to streaming video for all of the talks, all of the panels, and the walkthroughs as well. Everything that is the less interactive content, you will be able to get access to with a remote ticket. We are strictly asking up our chairs of all our sessions to make sure that all questions and audience participation in those goes through Slido, rather than people sticking their hands up and shouting out. We thought it would be a little bit too much to put onto our workshop submitters to ask them to organise a hybrid workshop. For the workshops, those are in person only.
Those of us who attended this year's collaborations workshop will know that was worked incredibly well, but that was a massive undertaking. And Rachel from the SSI did incredibly well to organise as hybrid. But it's just when you scale up the effort required to do that across 350 people across 3 days instead of 100 people across 2, it just becomes a bit impractical, unfortunately. This is definitely a thing that we would love to do. We just don't have the funds available, the staff available, unfortunately.
Give us a flavour of what's actually involved to pull something off like this, a full hybrid event like the collaborations workshop, to give the people a feel, to give the listeners a feel of what actually needs to happen in order to pull this off.
So one of the things that Collaborations Workshop did really well was having lots of small rooms with owls, just kind of like remote devices that allow you to, have a teleconference with a whole room with lots of remote participants. So we would need to kind of, instead of having like parallel sessions with 40, 50 people in a room, you'd kind of have to limit things more to, 20, 30 people. And even then, it's really hard to use an owl. You kind of need multiple Zoom licenses that have the higher cost levels. You need to have, so one of the things that was really well handled was having lots of Google documents for each session, and everything was being done strictly via Google documents with, so people remotely were on parity with people in the room because everything's being done there. And another thing that actually we struggled a little bit with at Collaborations Workshop was the bandwidth, because if you are streaming the remote attendees to everybody in like the location, that really bites into the bandwidth. So a couple of our sessions, we had an unfortunate problem because it was hard to download content, because with the sheer number of people sending data backwards and forwards. And again, that was for 100 people in the room, plus I think maybe about 80 people attending remotely. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the bandwidth demands for 300 people's video feeds being beamed backwards and forwards. So this is sadly why hybrid is best done small. You have a high number of staff as well on hand to deal with the technical issues. So the SSI had about 15, I think, helpers or so there for a 100-person conference. And that's a really high ratio to maintain, unfortunately.
I was actually participating remotely, so I was probably one of the 80 people in the collaborations workshop. But it's quite a high ratio of 80 to 100. So 100 people in the room physically and then 80 remotely, if we sort of home in on these numbers. Do you see that now that the pandemic is drifting further and further into the mist of history, are we going back, if I may say, put it that way, to a situation where, in fact, 90% will be partaking in conferences physically rather than remotely?
I think it would be a real shame if we cut people out of the community, having experienced through the pandemic that we can run things with at least some remote options and do things effectively there and bring people in who can't travel in person for whatever reason, to then cut those people back out and say, no, let's go back to the way things were. I think that would be a real shame. So that's why we tried really hard to have a remote option for this conference this year. We did run a survey a few months ago while we were planning what remote availability we would offer as to what people would want. And there was a decent chunk of the community who said they would only attend remotely. They would not attend in person. It was more than 10% of respondents said. That's one of the reasons we chose to give the remote option that we have, is that there were enough people saying that they were interested that it would cover the costs, because there are associated costs with running remote live streaming for an event of this size.
Exactly, which is what Sam mentioned before, so there's the extra licenses and there's also the people actually who need to make this happen, which is, in fact, the next subject I want to touch on, because we tend to take these community events for granted, but actually they require quite a lot of effort, and I would like to talk about that. So how much effort is required? How hard is it to organize an event like this? I'm not quite sure if we can talk about the money, but, there's also that question, of course. But let's talk about sort of the effort, because you've been at it for quite some time now, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. The conference committee started meeting in February of this year, I think. We have around 20-something people on the committee. We started trying to meet for an hour a week, and we were finding that wasn't enough. So we're meeting for an hour and a half, a fortnight, an hour and a half a fortnight at the moment. Outside of that, every person on the committee has extra work that they're doing in between those meetings as well. I'm probably putting in maybe a day a week of work into keeping things organised, trying to herd all of the cats.
From the society's perspective, we were already looking into the chair and the venue for the RSE Con 2025. We have a chair
25,
and venue for
not 24.
25. Yeah, we have a chair and venue for 24. One thing that's repeatedly come up, unfortunately, is that we keep having the conference in the first year of term. And I really know that that's a limiting factor for people. And we keep really trying hard to not have it in the first week of the English and Welsh school terms. I don't really know I'm sure terms are different in Scotland, but I don't know. We keep trying really hard. But in order to book those things, you have to book multiple years in advance. So realistically, unless we are getting this dialed in for 2025, we're not going to have it. So the contract negotiations for the venue have taken for Swansea University began actually under Claire, so back before last September, and they only finished in, I think, May. There's a huge amount of administrative work that goes into just things like lining up the program chair, lining up the venue, getting the contracts arranged for the venue, and so I've been probably doing over a day a week on it, but I've gotten down to about a day a week now that we've got the help of the SSI's new community manager, Lindsay, who's great. And we've also brought on a conference organizer for the first time called Dana, who's part of the scientific conference organizing company. And she's been doing really good as well. Basically, it takes a lot of time to put on a conference. Realistically, it's probably at least one full-time employee's worth of effort, which we have to try and siphon out of people in bits and bobs.
Well, how hard is it to find people who are willing to help? Is there sort of a group of eager volunteers and saying, oh, well, yeah, I want to be the conference chair, or I want to help out in identifying the program. So I'm happy to read through the drafts and the abstracts.
So Ed was involved in organising the conference organising committee as well this year, and we got lots of applicants. This was a really nice change. So yeah. I think because so many people saw the conference work last year, they were really eager to volunteer, and that's why we have like a quite large 20-person organising committee. I must admit, I don't know how we managed to get Ed as program chair. So
So I was approached, I think back in like beginning of 2020, Claire was first looking into coming to Swansea. She made an approach to me at that point. I am sufficiently oblivious to subtext. I didn't realise she was asking if I'd be programme chair. She was saying, it'd be nice if there was someone, an RSE from Swansea, who could be programme chair. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So then it was the RSE leaders meeting. At some point last year, Claire asked me more explicitly if I wanted to do it for this year. And I said, yes, absolutely, I can do that. Especially because currently I have an RSE fellowship, and I was told explicitly to STFC during the process for that it would be good if I could spend some of that time supporting the wider RSE community.
How did you get in your role, Sam?
So I volunteered to be a trustee because basically I'd seen lots of other people in my group do it, and I knew basically, James Graham and Anya Brown, but obviously also my boss is Simon Hetrick. So I'm, very, very looped into the fact that the society does a lot for the community, but requires a lot of work to keep it going. And so I thought, given how much I'd gone from the RSE community and how much I love the job, it was worth putting the effort back in to help perpetuate it. Because previously I've done work organising things like Pint of Science events and other sorts of voluntary things like data dives, that sort of thing. I thought I would use those skills to join the conference and events team. I am now having to step into Claire's shoes, and they are very big shoes to fill. We knew in the abstract sense how vital Claire was and how important she was and how much society depended on her.
It's only when you organise events like this you realise how much they depend on people stepping up and volunteering and donating their time to support the wider community. We really appreciate everyone who does that. It makes me feel, I need to participate more and try and support the community, because otherwise we won't have a community anymore.
Indeed, which is, of course, my next question. So if people do want to step up, what kind of roles are available and how can they get in touch and roll up their sleeves and get busy?
That's a really good point. So if you are on the RSE Slack, you will have seen a large number of calls over the last few months because we have so many different roles that we try to fill. We recently, in principle, closed the call for volunteers, but we do still have some need for more volunteers to assist with the running of the conference, particularly online volunteers. When we're running online, then we need some people to make sure that the people who are streaming, who have the remote tickets, are getting the full experience and it's working for them. That is a role that could be done by people who couldn't travel to the conference, for instance, and perhaps people who might not be able to afford the remote ticket otherwise, because volunteers do get a free conference ticket.
So from the society's perspective, the things that we would really sort of benefit from would be basically people volunteering to be trustees. The process of running the society it's rewarding, it's engaging, but it does take a lot of volunteer effort. And so we want to make sure that when the event rolls around and we have the AGM and there's the call for people to become trustees, please do consider becoming a trustee. The society is really interesting. We're always in need of more trustees, and I encourage you to sign up because it's great. And the society is also opening sort of working groups where members of the community can help out with things. But the other conference-related help is we're still sort of arranging sponsors. So if you have any contacts who might be able to help to get us to get more sponsorship for the event, the society depends on the funding raised by the conference to sort of support running the conference next year, and also the society's the other things that we run, like the Events Initiatives Fund, as well just the ongoing costs of maintaining a charity. We really depend on sponsorship, and it'd be really helpful if people could email any sort of leads that they have, contacts at organisations who would be interested in sponsoring or might have budget available. We have lists of people that we could email, but the important thing is having a contact there who might be friendly and who is familiar with the RSE community. There's an email address for that, which is sponsorship@society-rse.org. Just drop me a line there.
And a step further, if you are working for a company, you control a large budget and you would benefit from publicity to the RSE community, then do get in touch with that address as well.
Yeah, because we tend to forget this. Community events are all very well, but they do cost money at the end. So yeah, I try to second that. If you have a bag of money lying around that seeks a noble cause, then consider the society. Are you getting nervous, guys?
I don't know, but I've certainly been a bit nervous. Thankfully, now we've got Lindsay and Dana helping us out with the conference organising. I'm a lot less stressed. It's definitely nice to have So both of them have a lot of experience organising events, and Dana has experience organising conferences in the same size, in bioinformatics and other similar domains. Definitely the process of things like organising the contracts has been an eye-opener. It's not a thing that you are used to dealing with as a senior RSE rather than like a group lead or anything. I don't normally deal with finance and contracts. So it's good experience to have for career development, but...
Not one that you anticipated necessarily. Well, I'm sure it's going to work out very well, and I certainly look forward to seeing you in Swansea. So what's going to happen in the run-up to Swansea? Let's go through that a little bit, because there's, of course, the summer break, and it's happening immediately afterwards, after August, when people come back and finish sipping their martinis by the poolside. So what's happening in the run-up? I guess the organising committee is going to keep busy during that period, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. From our perspective, we're going to be making sure that all of the talks and all of the workshops, all of the other sessions have the resources that they need. So getting in touch with people whose submissions have been accepted to make sure that we can provide everything they need. All the details of the things around the logistics, making sure people are going to be able to eat and people are going to be able to get from one place to another and things like that. So that when everyone arrives on the 4th of September, they have the best experience that they can.
When you're a presenter, since this is going to be streamed, do people then have to submit their slide deck before the conference so that it can be ready, or is that they plug their...
That is something we have asked for previous conferences, because we do make the slides available on the web on the program so people can follow them along. For other reasons, if they have an accessibility need in the room and they can't necessarily see the screen, or they want to adjust fonts or whatever, we do ask people to submit their slides in advance, and we will be doing the same this year. The streaming itself will be done, it will be a screen capture from the machine being presented from. The remote participants will get exactly the same stream, exactly the same presentation view as people in the room can see. Yeah.
Just from a very practical, because I know that presenters sometimes stumble over that. They walk to the podium with their own laptops. But is that possible so they can plug it in, or is that laptop actually, or that facility provided?
There is a meeting happening in 18 minutes' time with the Swansea AV team where that question will be answered. But we will provide that information to all speakers well in advance of the event so they know what's going on.
Brilliant, exactly. Well, by the time this episode goes live, then this answer will be provided, no doubt. Okay.
Oh, could I just give another thing that is going to be happening in the run-up? Our accommodations site that we have, so that's basically set up through Swansea University. So they've been able to give us like really good rates on rooms in the halls there. The deadline for getting those is the end of July, so July the 31st.
Okay.
Before the conference starts, we're going to be really trying to get people to sign up for the accommodation, because there is that deadline that's a bit ahead of the conference. And it's a lot cheaper than going for a hotel, and also a lot more convenient because it is on campus, 5 minutes walk from the venue rather than a 20-minute bus ride from the centre. If you have any questions about the accommodation or, need any help signing up for it, then just let the society know, or let the conference organisers know. But we do need to make sure that's handled, because this is the first year that we've tried providing accommodation for people. We don't think there should be any more snags, but, we'd really like people to not necessarily leave it till the last minute so that we can make sure everything gets done and there's time to solve any problems.
Well, good luck with that. And the program, when will that be out?
The program will be out by the time this podcast goes live. As you are listening now, the program is live.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Sam, and thank you very much, Ed, and thank you very much, everybody who's been helping with this conference. I'm sure it's going to be great. And as I said, I look forward to seeing you all in Swansea.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you here.
Yeah.
Oh, time's up. See you next time. But before I forget, this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons license. See ya.